I'm saying, suppose the greatest men in the world said man will never fly in a flying machine. Not possible. And you felt you can fly. Would you oppose them?
Oh yeah, I don't care what.
Suppose somebody said you won't see
If I
anybody
thought-
going to the moon for 3,000 years, mister. That's not an hard time. And you found out, you felt that it could be done, would you speak up?
Yeah, if I felt it could be done.
And could you understand the people who said, well, I can't see that, you'll never see anybody going? Can you understand why they do that?
Do I understand?
Yeah.
Yeah, they was.
Why are they so hard-headed about it?
Open.
Ah, you figure they're pretty hard-headed about ideas. They stick to their own ideas.
Well, what they were taught, right? But
Right.
that's not the way it is.
Right, all right. How do you know, when you're reacting in the way you were taught, how do you know that the things you believe in may not be wrong? You know, if you ever meet a guy that believed in Mohammed, he said there's no God but Allah, and Mohammed is his prophet. And they really believe that. And the Jews really believe that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost are full of shit. Now, the only real thing is the Christ. That is, the real thing is Yahweh, God, their God. And the other God is fake. Jesus is not the Messiah. They believe that, just as sincerely as you believe. Now, there's 125 different gods in the world today. They're very different. They're not the same. If you read the Old Testament, I don't think you read much of the Bible, do you?
No, I don't.
Well, in the old one it says, if a man takes your son's eyes out, you take his eyes out, his son's eyes out. Now, if a man strikes you, beat the shit out of him. And Jesus Christ said, if a man strikes you, turn the other cheek. And if somebody takes your son's eyes out, love thine enemy. See, so the different advices given by different gods are very different. So how can there be one God with all these different kinds of advice? So some of them are full of shit, obviously. If there's one God, it makes a hell of a lot of them. Not dishonest. I mean, they really don't know. They were brought up to think that that's the right way. See? I know somebody said that people are three-faced or two-faced. And somebody recently said that God is three-faced. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. You see, I don't know if you make anything of that. The whole idea, it might be one big fat fraud. It might be. Then it might be real. So when somebody says, do you really know there's a God? You can say, well, no, I don't know it, but I believe there may be. That's all right. You really don't know.
I believe.
Yeah, you believe.
I believe there is.
Right.
But I believe it's all the other religions, it's still the same God.
Yeah, but their words about them are different.
Yeah, different, but it's still the same. There's only one.
All right. Now, what do you think of it? Do you know what an atheist is?
Yes.
He says there's no God.
Right.
What do you think of atheists?
They don't believe.
Yeah.
I feel that for some reason they choose not to believe. They feel that there is no.
Do you think they ought to be arrested?
Huh?
Do you think they ought to be arrested?
No, I don't think anything should be done about it. I think they should be just left to believe that there is no God, if they feel there is no God.
Do you feel that they should have the same rights that religious people have in terms of radio time on Sunday? Should they be given an hour to talk about why they don't believe in God?
Of course, why not?
How come you never hear that?
Change my mind.
How come you never hear that on TV and radio?
Because I don't believe, people are as open-minded as I would be with that, Some people.
But you said even if atheists were on the air, you still wouldn't believe it.
Right, I wouldn't, they wouldn't change my mind to the fact that I don't think so.
Okay, let me ask you another question. Do you believe you got to believe in God by hearing about it? Well, you never heard
No,
of
by person.
You never heard of God.
No, I heard about it, but...
Somebody told you there's a God. He made the world and made life and made the birds and everything. Somebody told you.
Right, I've heard that.
What if you've heard the other story first? What do you think?
I don't know.
All right,
But-
that's fair. You don't know.
But,
If you were brought up by a Mohammedan, you'd believe in that God. Probably.
probably.
All right. Okay. Okay. So the idea is to try to find out what the hell it's all about, as near as we can, if you're interested. Nothing, because it doesn't matter. All right, what do you guys want to talk about tonight? We're going to talk about things you want to talk about. You're off the hook. That's the end of the show. Do you want to talk about anything special tonight? Since we talk about anything, yes.
I don't know if this is human behavior and human relations, but when a person says, in a relationship, when a person says they love someone, but yet they're not happy in the relationship, what is that person actually saying?
Well, I'm taking you at your word. So, I'm assuming that what you're saying is true, just for the question to be answered. You're saying that a person might say to somebody, I love you, but I'd like to get out of the relationship?
No, that's not
What do you want to say?
Well, suppose somebody said to me that they love the person, but they're not happy in the relationship that they're in at the moment.
We'd have to find out what they mean by love. You know, if love to me meant my girlfriend stroking my bald head, if that's what love meant, and she never stroked my bald head, I would not love her. Now what the hell does love mean? What love are you
Well, I
talking
can't
about?
specify it because it's the short.
Well, anyway, answer a tight, hard answer, as simple as the question you asked, there's no love. Where the person says, I really love you, but I want out. I want to leave. There's no love. That's the answer. Okay? I don't like the answer. I hope there's a better way. That's the way it is. Okay, you want to read that propaganda aloud? What is it?
Oh, it says, what will life be like in
Oh, that.
the year 2000? Have you seen
Okay,
it?
I've read it.
You've read it, so you don't want it read, do you?
No.
No, it's not that good.
Okay. I need to know what life would be like in the year 2000. Okay, what do you want to know beyond that?
They predict here there'll be a decentralized, less powerful federal government
Yes.
by the year 2000.
Oh, that's fine.
You think it's going to be just the opposite?
Yes, it does. What else do you want to know about that?
That was just, I just didn't understand how a person would say one thing and
You
then.
don't? You know what a soft letdown is?
No.
You're too good for me. You ever hear that?
Yeah.
I'm not good enough. Go to California. Okay. I'd only mess up your life. Out. Anyway, do you have any other questions? What's the matter, Carl?
Would you like to talk about something like
I'll talk about anything you want.
computers, how they work internally? I mean, you've made some discussions about robots and computers and how they might work in the future, but
Okay.
the internal mechanism, I
In
don't
essence,
quite figure that out.
you understand that flashing lights or on and off switch can mean yes or no. When it's on, it could be yes, when it's off, it could be no. You understand that you can assign a numerical system to any event? Or is that vague? Anything that becomes vague, is really. Do you understand what I'm saying? A numerical system can be assigned any event. Since you're dealing with numerical systems on a high degree of complexity, I'm going to try to simplify it. You're dealing with numerical systems on a high order of complexity. Therefore, if you put in numerical systems and have the equivalent, meaning social events, related to it, you can call upon numerical systems and equate them with social events. If you put social events in the machine, it becomes too complicated. If I say, suppose there are 10 people in this room, or 15, and I write everyone's name down, or I start and call him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's much easier to keep on a computer. Now, if I'm interested in the fact that he's a carpenter, I'll put 1 and assign the term carpenter 1. So I just have a simpler system. Now this could mean that he's a carpenter and a mechanic and a machinist. Whatever I want it to mean, is that right? 1 could mean anything, a number. So you assign numbers to events. And you store them in a numerical system associated with events. The way they work is essentially like a circuit, an on and off switch, which could represent the amount of on and off. At 1 to 10, with 1 to 10 you can do all kinds of variations. Are you familiar with the abacus, the old Chinese counting device? Well, the computer is essentially an electronic extension of that, with a numerical equivalent to events. Now, simply stating a program is something like this. I'll make it real simple. These are just holders built up. This is a wire coming in, and all this is the return circuit. Is that all right? This is a single wire, and all of these wires go back to the return wire, single wire, right? Now I can connect these any way I want to. I can run a plug into that and one into that, and that's a closed circuit. Well, I can pull this out and put it in that. If I put it in that, the word job will be there. If I put it in this, mechanics go on. Do you know what I'm talking about? Is that too big? Whatever word I want. I can cause the light up by changing this button. Can you picture that? What do you have difficulty with that? All right. You know how the telephone company works? This buzzer, I put a insert into that when the light goes on. All right. When in programming a computer, if I had a panel like this and a picture here of the human skull like that. Let's zoom in there. and there were indicators here, and there's a button, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I would have pressed the button when the different words went by here. So scalp, throat, cranial case, and I pressed the button when that word went by. Is that all right? All right. The word cranial case has an electrical contact down there when it's up. And if I press the button when the contact's on, that'll go through. And if it goes through, it says correct. Okay? Now by changing that picture and putting something else in there, something you're very familiar with, the old map of the United States, say, and this light goes on, or this light goes on, and I press Los Angeles. Do you know what I mean? Then this light goes on, I press Oklahoma, and it says wrong. By rewiring this basic system, I can wire it so I can correlate it with the states as we've named it, or I could do any other thing by changing this. I can reprogram it. I can either pull out the plugs and shove them in, or I can put a card in, a perforated card, which does the same thing. I don't know if that's clear. How perforated programmers work. They're not clear? You understand that if you got a button here, and you dial 17893, or say 145, all right? You get a telephone number. If you had a key with 4 notches in it, and say 1 notch here and 5 notches here, and you shove that key in an electronic slot, as you shoved it in, and a spring pushed it back out, it would dial the number for you. Do you understand that? Then you can put magnetic tape in there and pass it by a magnetic head, and you get a number for you. What computers are about, they don't represent the truth or reality or anything. They only represent what you program into them. And no computer can represent reality, because a computer cannot represent an undefined term. I don't want you to think that thinking machines can be intelligent. They can't, because you have to define your terms first. If you ask a computer, the computer says the average American receives $17,000 a year. You say, gee, that's pretty good. But if you went around talking to most Americans, they don't receive anything like that. I don't know what that means. There's 1.5 babies born every second. What the hell's a half a baby? You know what I mean? Statistics don't make sense in many areas. They're insane if you try to eat those figures. You know what I'm talking about? That the average person has 3.5 eyes. You know what do you want to do with things like that? Or the average lifespan. I'm not interested in that. I'm really not interested in that. Because people live longer in Hawaii than anywhere in the world. So when they figure out the average lifespan, they include in the world all the areas. So you don't know where you're at. All I want to know is what the lifespan is in Dade County, because that's where I'm at. And I want to know what the incidence of lung cancer is in Dade County. And I want to know how many sharks attack people on Key Biscayne, not average in the world. You know, very few Eskimos are attacked by sharks because they're all swimming right now. I'm not, statistics, when put in that kind of category, I don't care for. Now, a lot of people love it. I think it's great. You know, 1.5 alcoholics. What's a half of an alcoholic? So there's a lot of crap. And the reason for it is to conceal something. I wonder if you understand that. When you give the average income, you're concealing a hell of a lot of information. You know what I'm talking about?
Information like what? What did we conceal?
Well, suppose half of us here make 10,000 a year, see? And then the other half make nothing a year. I can talk about the average income. It wouldn't make sense, though, would it? That's what I mean. It tends to conceal things. And you can just go on, it's easier to describe that this man has coronary thrombosis, that she has an infection of the liver. This isn't true, what I'm saying. If you went around just saying that, not saying 1 in 10 are going to get this kind of disorder, it's much better to announce it that way. Do you know what I mean? Just announce what it is. Okay? Because if you want to use statistics, then here's what I'd like to see in the newspaper. Of the 10,000 young ladies that go to Los Angeles every week to get into movies, 3 land a job. Okay? What if they put all kinds of statistics there? People that go to a court of law that don't have money for good representation generally lose. I'd like to see that. Yes, that's true what I'm saying. How come that isn't in your statistics? How come the only shit in your statistic is the average American has one car? Because they don't want to tell you that the car isn't paid for. It doesn't say the average American has one car, a wheelbarrow, and a lawnmower. But it doesn't say that doesn't work most of the time. And a car that needs 16% repair, and most of it is owned by private finance companies. You understand? They don't give you that. And so I would say that statistics is strictly bullshit when used that way. Is that all right now?
Sure.
The computers, then, are not statistical scientific machines yet. They only are so much in as much as you feed it a problem. If you want to run a pipeline from Alaska, from one point of Alaska down to another point, you know how much pipe will be used and how many welded joints and how many tons of steel will be used. You can use computers for very complex problems of that kind. You can use computers to find instantaneous variables all through a system and get the outcome. That would be all right if the system is fundamentally physical. You think you know what I mean by that? It's, again, a numerical system that represents physical events. Now, let me tell you another thing. I can get you a typewriter with numbers on it only. And I can give you a series of numbers to type. And you do 1, 9, 4, 6, a whole bunch of numbers like that. And you send it to Joe in California. And 1 means don't invest in United States steel today. 9, you can work that out. So you've assigned a numerical equivalent to events, which is easier. By giving him 100 numbers, I can tell him the significant pages of a book that we know about, the significant pages that contain information. You see what I'm getting at? All right. Now, if we have a line high on the 6th, on the beginning of the 6th page, down near the middle of the 6th page, you can work out a code. All right, so numbers can represent anything at all. But if they stand for events in the physical world, they're real. If they don't, they're worthless. I don't know what is real about half a baby is born every 1/20th of a second. I don't know how real that is or what I can do with it. I don't know what I can do with that kind of statistic. Okay, so essentially this is what they do. And they work in essence as an on and off switch. You know what that is? An on and off switch. When you put a switch on, it could represent something, and you turn it off, it could represent. And if you flish it on from 1 to 10 times and go all the way up to the number 10, build up the number 10. Mechanical computers in the early days were done with gears, with different ratios. It would be 10 to 1 or 100 to 1. When you turn this 10 times, this moves 1/10 of the surface of this large gear in the early days. And today, with electrical systems, they can get fast representations. In essence, well, that's what it does. I think if you want to go into the actual structure of the computer, I'll do that some other time. There's lots of people. Okay, what do you want to talk about? Anything else? Do you have anything in mind? Okay.
And you say, sometimes when you're talking, you always say, why don't they say something about statistics? You always say, why don't they? Who are you talking about? Because I don't think, you say, why don't they say things on the headlines? And you say they. And I also want to know, I don't think people are, think about it that much. I think they just type off the news. And I don't think people are behind it and are trying to tell the American people something else. Like, I don't think there's one big person that smart that's fooling all the American people. Like, I don't know. Just I noticed that sometimes. I wanted to know what you meant or who you mean.
No, you don't think they're really fooling the American people.
No, I don't. See, I don't think that.
Is that what you
They
mean?
think they are, and I don't know who you're talking about that's doing it because I don't
You
think.
want to know.
Who's they?
I don't think
Okay.
there could be.
Oh.
I don't think there's someone that's
Your
smart.
question is who's fooling the American people? Is that what you want to know?
Right.
They.
Oh, you got a pencil with you?
No.
The name of the group, the book that you want to read, is called America's 60 Families. You ever hear of it?
Oh, no.
Another book, The Rich and the Super Rich. That tells you who. Okay? Now, and there are many, many other books, but I get those two to start with. And then I'll tell you. Now, what kind of fooling in particular? I'll tell you who's fooling. You name the kind of fooling.
Not in particular, but like okay, hello with all the oil. I mean, it's
What?
the oil problem.
Yeah, what about it?
Well, who do you think's behind it? I mean, a lot of people are saying it's not. It's funny. It's not. The truth. They're doing that to fool the American people.
Who's doing it?
I don't know.
The oil companies.
But do you think that they think they're fooling us? Or how
Do
come
they
it's so
think they're
confusing?
fooling?
Why is it so confusing? Why isn't there like a board that
There
tells
isn't any.
There's nothing?
No.
Because there's, I don't know, I guess there should be. There should be
Well,
something
you'd have to
that
make that.
explains it. I don't think people know what's going
Well,
on.
suppose you had a board here to make sure that nobody would screw the American people in Washington. a board of public defenders, a board of public perseverance to make sure that no one would abuse the public. Is that all right? Well, here's your board.
That would be just as important.
And now here's the head of the board. His name is Honest Sam. Now he owns a big oil company. He says, Sam, how about having dinner with me Friday? You know what I'm talking about? Or need I say more? What am I saying?
I know what you're saying, but is it?
What am I saying? What do you, wait a minute.
Okay, you're saying that that guy would become the.
Become what?
Would be honest. He's really not honest.
When you got an honest boy, you can pay him off. How honest is what I'm asking you. How honest are these boards?
It's got to be honest people.
Yeah?
I mean, like, I'm not.
I'm interested. I'm very interested. I'm very interested. I just want to ask a question of you. You know, if you say it's got to be honest people, I'm assuming at least you're honest. At least. Did you ever take a pencil or a paper or a cake or anything that didn't belong to you? Huh?
The cake especially. You know.
Did you ever take anything that didn't belong to you?
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm honest.
Oh, wait just a
I'm
minute.
not saying
Is there
that-
anybody here that never stole a pencil, a paper clip,
Those are, no,
got into the movies, were overpaid in change and always announced it? Will you raise your hand? All right. Now, do you have any questions?
Those are like victimless crimes, you know? It's like, really, you know, I stick into the movie. Oh, I never did.
Do you know why you don't do big crimes? Because you get caught. You're not that good at it.
No, I don't do them because I'm not
You're not
around
in a
them.
position.
You're not a chance.
Right. You're not
I'm not,
around.
that's the only reason.
I know that.
I'm not around it.
And now, what makes you think the big guys, what makes you think the big guys are any different than you?
They just work their way up there.
No. You work your way down. They start on top. Instead of stealing small things in a drugstore, they'll get right up into Washington, where they can swing a big deal. Why should they piddle around? Why should they steal hubcaps when they can sell 130,000 tractors for the Army or tanks? Why should they piddle around? Let me ask you, let's talk about crime. You don't smoke a pipe, so you have to take my word for it and ask anybody who smokes a pipe. Of all the conventional pipe tobaccos, they look something like this. And they have beautiful packaging, all that shit. If you open it, the tobacco in there is 1/3 of airspace. Do you believe me? Or you say, I don't know.
No, I believe it.
Now, is there any attempt at deception in the packaging? Is that a crime?
It's a crime, but I thought it was illegal then.
You did?
No, they excuse themselves.
How?
Due to settling.
What?
They say it's due to settling.
Settling rights.
In the transfer from the tobacco company to the store, it settles. That's the excuse they use, written right on the package.
Well, if they say, what is
Let
the
me
net
tell you,
weight?
cereal
and
packages
In a
net
packaging
weight,
company, if you compress it and package it, you use less material. You know that?
Yeah, sure. I'm just saying the excuse they use is in print. I'm sorry.
Now, there are many boxes of cornflakes and shit like that. You open it with a lot of airspace in it. You understand?
I have a Jewish reason.
Well, there used to be a bottle called, you can check it out with your old timers. Used to look like this. It weighed 9 tons. It was called a glass of root beer. And if you stuck your finger up, there was a hollow bottom way up in there. You know what? That's where this came from. You don't remember that? Huh? Why do they make the wall thickness of the glass so heavy? You have any idea? Why?
So the thing we got wrong.
That's right. Now, there was a cake years ago. I think it was called a Charlotte Russe or something like that. Can anybody tell me anything about it?
What was the name?
Charlotte Russe or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that the name of it?
Yeah. It
What
was
did you
mostly
tell me about it?
whipped cream.
What?
A lot of whipped
It was a
cream.
hollow fucking
hollow
cup. Like that.
Oh yeah, I remember.
There's a little piece of sponge cake.
I remember.
A little fart of whipped cream.
That's it. Yeah, I remember.
Anybody remember?
Yeah, oh, I have a lot of times.
Now, there's a lot of shit out like that. Now, I'm going to tell you specifically. The Pure Food and Drug Administration, an agency of the federal government, found that there were loaves of bread in the public market. And it said 35 cents on this one, and it said 35 cents on this one. And the public bought this one. See? But the company that makes this, when the dough is mixing, they blow air in with the dough. Blow
Yeah.
You understand what I'm talking about? The purpose of that is to fool the public. Do you understand? Why is there small print on anything? You know why it's small print? What?
Do I know I do small?
Why do they put small print on contracts? It says this car is one of the finest cars made. If you ever have any trouble with it, Why is that? Why don't they put, if you ever have any trouble with it, take it to Sam's, your Rippity Sneeds and all that, and we guarantee this car forever. Small print. You know what I mean? Whatever. Why do they do that? With the intent to deceive. Is that right?
That's how they sell their.
Why does a lawyer say, answer yes or no? Were you there on February the 8th? Don't tell me because your brother-in-law tripped, you went there to help him up. Why yes or no? Why is it a yes or no question? To bust your ass. You understand that? They don't want to know the truth, they want to win the case. Do you understand that? So lawyers, by the nature of their field, are utterly corrupt. Because verbally, if you don't speak too well, and you got a real case, Penny, and he speaks better than you do, he'll put you down. Do you understand that?
Okay, but can you also see why they would have to say yes or no? Because if they start letting everyone explain why they were there, they just want to know what
Yeah,
you
but
were
that's
there.
why the lawyer does it. The lawyer does it to win the case. The whole idea of law is to win the case, not to find the truth. Because the lawyer wouldn't put you on the stand and ask you a lot of questions that are all negative. He'd ask you some positive questions. That's a good point. You know, I hadn't thought of it that way. A real honest person would say, what happened on February the 8th? And she says, he threw a tremendous wheelbarrow full of stones down to the child playing below. Then I asked, Paula, what happened, Paula? Well, I was up the building and he had a wheelbarrow full of stones and he tripped, and the wheelbarrow full of stones went down. And I said, Ted, what happened? Well, he said he had a bet with this guy. He said, you dumped the wheelbarrow on that person. And all these people tell different stories. So I'll get up and I'll tell Ted's story and Paula's story, his story. And she said, what really happened? I really don't know. How can I know what happened? He said this. He said that. The Japanese said American gangsters. No good, Americans. We bombed Pearl Harbor because they hurt us. And the Germans say Americans are Coca-Cola and cigarettes and gambling and whorehouses. And the Germans give you a list of American shit. You know, chain gangs and just a lot of shit. We don't get all sides of the story. Besides, if our nation permitted all sides of the story, we would lose our people. You understand? If you had this man come from North Vietnam, he says, I want to tell you the side of the story of North Vietnam. The poor people are suffering. And he goes on, he tells their story. And then he gives the American side of it. And she gives the British side of it. Nobody can vote on war. They say, geez, they're all full of shit. How are you going to know? You think because it's your country it's always right? What do you think? Do you know what I'm saying?
I think it's all, it's all a put on always, like I said.
Now, why? So we got a lot of problems. I want you to find,
Right.
You're interested in learning the truth, right? Now, no one can know the truth. Do you understand? Suppose I wanted to break you, okay? I can stick some marijuana in your car, locked. I can put some hard drugs in the back seat. Then I can phone the police and say, I don't want to tell you who I am, but, do you understand? Then they pick you up, and you say, believe me, I didn't know a thing. And, oh yeah? Do you think your friends at school say, look, I know her, she doesn't go for that? You say, oh, don't tell me that shit. I read the papers yesterday. Do you understand what I'm talking about? But you don't know how many cases, how many people are broken in this country because somebody wants them broken. Do you know?
Yeah, I know what there's some.
Oh, wait. Now, the point is, you want to put people in government that are honest.
But the thing is, there aren't any really honest.
Well, they're honest people. You can find them at Union Rescue Mission. They don't have any money, they have no vested interest. You know what I mean?
That's why they're honest, because they don't have anything, because if they
That's
had a
right.
chance
Now,
to
if you want
take it-
anybody in politics, put the people of Union Rescue Mission in politics. But don't give them any income. Give them oatmeal, beans, and a bed to sleep on. And they can never own anything. Make honest decisions. Does he want to go to war? He says, fuck it. I mean, no war.
The moment they make $1 million, 20 years.
No, not $1 million, $11. See, he got trouble. Okay? All right, so what I'm trying to tell you is the way our government is today, and all governments all over the world, not only our government, they're always the same. They're not worth a shit. Now, the army is corrupt, the police are corrupt, everybody. There's nothing that's any good. Now, the priesthood is corrupt. I'm going to try to prove that to you, if you don't believe it, do you?
It is cooked.
Do you remember God's right-hand man, his best friend named Lucifer? An angel? He wanted to take God's throne away from him? Well, he can't even get his best friends to work with him. How stupid he is to ask man to do the right thing. He can't even get his own angels to work with him. You know what I'm talking about? If there's a God. Because I don't believe there is, because I think they've made him so dumb from the Bible. They made him as dumb as the people who believe in it. See? Now, you wouldn't know exactly what I'm talking about. But do you think that if you knew Albert Einstein, if you knew him personally, do you think that you'd tell him what to do
Would I tell him what to do?
in math?
No, I wouldn't, because I wouldn't know enough to tell him what to do.
Right. Now, you think that God is 1,000,000 times smarter than Einstein, or 50 billion times smarter, right?
God is has no beginning, has no end.
You know, knows everything.
Right.
You don't have to tell him.
To me.
You don't have to tell him that you got a pain in the ass and you'd like it eased.
I don't have to tell him that.
No,
No,
you
you're
don't
right.
have
I
to.
don't pray for things like that.
No, nobody has to tell him anything. Because when you tell him you got a toothache or your asshole hurts, and he listens and looks down and he says, "Ooh, is that right?" You understand you make him dumb when you do that. So I feel that in dealing with that kind of subject at all, we don't deal with it here very much because it doesn't make much sense to us. Now, it might make sense to you. And the message I'm trying to get across to you is that don't be so sure of the things that even you think might be so. Because I'm not sure of many things that I talk about as being so. The only things that I'm sure of are the scientific and technical things. That means if you've got a pump that's fairly well built, and you've examined it, you know how much water an hour you can move from this area to that area, assuming there's no power failure. Right? And miles per gallon on a car, and the general tire wear of a well-inspected tire, and the performance of military airplanes that are well-made are fairly good. You can check them out. But when it comes to, believe me, there's the finest man in politics, we don't have a way of checking that out. Now, I'll tell you something. Did you know that scientists are brought up, this is very important, not to believe anybody? You probably didn't know that.
I knew.
They're brought up this way.
That's why.
They take an oath, and the oath runs like this. I will never believe anybody. I will not believe my father, my mother, my eyes, or my ears. Only that which is measurable. You know what that means? Here's what they mean now.
The thing you say you believe in.
Yeah.
Only that is.
Which is measurable. Now, that's different. Here's what it means. It means that the people that make military airplanes say that this airplane can fall from a 20-foot height, like that, without the landing gear breaking. And the Army says, is that right? And they give them a piece of paper that says, this plane can stand a 20-foot drop full load, and the landing gear will not collapse. The Army takes that, they say, that's great. And they pull up that whole fucking airplane, wheels and all, and they load it with cement bags, you see? They pull it up 20 feet high. Do you know that? Even though they got the paper in their hand. And they cut the string, the plane goes, bam, the landing gear holds up, and they say, that's right. I love that system, okay? Otherwise, you really don't know. Because you can say to me, when you manufacture an airplane that you send to Wright Field, that's your government testing center, and I'm an Army test pilot, and I fly that plane, it's perfect. And he says, all right, we'll order 500 of them. How do you know the others are going to be like that? How do you know that the plane sent to Wright Field isn't put together by master craftsmen just to get the contract? Do you know what I'm talking about? I better tell you, now you asked me about real cases. During World War II, we got a fish tank. It was a water tank at Wright Field. And there were 2 pieces of wood in there, like that. And they were glued together. And there were 2 big fat springs on there, pulling, like with 40 pounds each on each side. And it was in that water for about 3 months. They sent it from England to show how good their glue was. Get that? They sent this whole tank full of water. And I looked at it and I said, that's fine. And the colonel said, we're going to order 40 gliders from England that are glued together with that glue. So we ordered 40 gliders. And they were all out on the runway. And we had 2 days of rain. And the wood separated in the gliders, okay? The colonel looked at the tank, looked at the plane, and said, I don't understand that at all. I said, well, the glue that they put in here was refined and carefully measured out. But the glue that they were mixing in the factory, you understand? The lunch hour bell rang while the guy put the glue in there. He turned off the machine, you know what I mean? And then he went on the way out, he got hit by a bag of crap that's on the top, and they took him to the hospital. The other guy came back and he emptied the stuff in the tanks, you understand? That's called poor quality control. You know what I'm talking about? Because you don't always know what's in that glue. You don't know whether it was run through perfectly, quality control. You know what I'm talking about? So they did glue all these planes together. And they did come apart. And I said to the colonel, that they had poor quality control. That means you got to examine the glue at all stages, even before it goes on the wing. Is that all right? For an aircraft company to put in all quality control inspectors all along the line, it's much cheaper to give you a 5-year warranty or guarantee on a car instead of putting all those quality control inspectors on a production line. Because they know having all those men to control means you've got to go back and up and back, a lot of trouble, so they give you a warranty. Then when you take it out to have your car worked on, they turn some people on it who know anything about the car. They do a little thing, you call them, says, it still doesn't work, they come in Saturday or Monday at 2 o'clock, and that's hard for you to come in Monday at 2 o'clock. And well, then try to get in Thursday at 7:30. I can't, gotta go to work. Well, try to come in, you know, and they don't give it the attention. And after 3 times, you say, well, fuck it, I'll take it some other place. You understand? So this is all deliberate. Now, when you go to a movie theater, at least drive-ins, and it says, or Cuban theaters, it says, eat at Sam Blowjob. See, you have no business putting any of that shit in the movie theater. When you go in a movie and you pay, it doesn't say, when in Nevada, stop at Euripide Sneed's hotel. You pay to go in that movie. Unless Euripide Sneed says, come on in, enjoy the movie. I'm just paying for the ad. You enjoy it. See? But they have no right to do that in a movie theater. You understand? You're a captive audience. You're there. And they have no right in movie theater to flash on the screen, don't go for paid TV. It's a crock of shit. See? Because paid TV, if it ever came out, it'd wipe out the movies. So they use their controls and their positions to keep people brainwashed. Now let me give you the other corruption. You asked me specifically, who are they? When you buy a war bond for 1875 in the early days, you got $25 10 years later. Did you know that? Do you know anything about war bonds? Do you know where that extra money comes from? To give you extra money? Suppose I took $10 from you now, and it's 20 years from now you're going to get $20
They
back.
make off the money, right?
What?
What does that mean?
Well, they get it from you, taxing. There's no way I can get $10 from everybody. You ain't giving back $20 10 years from now. I'm going to raise your taxes to give it back that money. Is that clear?
Then you did, don't you?
The lie is what I'm trying to. Why don't you say, look, we need the money to bring Joe home. Stop about $10 next year. You're not going to get it. We just want the money to help win the war. Do that. Now, when you go to a movie theater and it says, you don't remember this, it said buy war bonds. You ever see that in a movie theater? Well, shit, see, you're too young. You're going to have to ask your dad about it. And it said buy war bonds. Do you know who paid for that film? To get you to buy war bonds? You know who pays for it? You. Well, I can't understand how I would pay to convince myself to buy war bonds. Right? Now, when you drive downtown and you park in front of a meter, do you know who pays for those meters downtown? That's right. Do you know who paid for the motorcycle that girl drives? That's right. You know who paid for a uniform? You know who pays her salary? You know who she works for?
Us?
You'd never know it.
Yeah,
Right? How come a motorcycle cop says, pull over, where do you think you are? He works for you. And that's what
job.
pull over. No, it isn't his job. That's what it's become. That's what corrupt means. Now here's the way a police officer works in the future. He asks you to pull over. Then he says that the speed limit in this area is 25 miles an hour. Is there any particular reason why you violated it? He said, yeah, my boss says if I come in late one more time at the end of the job, I can't afford that. He said, why were you late? He said, you ever have a baby that shit just before you were leaving? And you had to change the diapers? He says, well, I can understand those circumstances. He says, geez, try to be careful and try to get up a little early and try to do the best you can. Now, the next day, you're drunk as hell going down the street. By giving you a ticket, that doesn't cause the alcohol to disappear, does it? If you're an alcoholic. By getting alongside you and calling up one of the police cars that are available and put you in that car and help you get home, that's the job of a police officer. The job of a police officer is to assist you, get you home all right, not to hurt you. But you didn't know that. If all of us lived in a community, all of us, and we all chipped in $100 a week and made Teddy a police officer for our community, and my little kid was crawling in somebody else's window, Ted would bring the kid home and says, he was crawling in Carl's window. And I'd have to talk to my kids. I said, look, Paul has his own things. If you want anything, if you feel there's anything lacking, why don't you knock at Carl's door and say, can I borrow your photograph or radio? If he refuses you, then come and tell me about it. Maybe I can get it for you. Maybe I can provide those things for you. And if I can't, then I can understand what you're doing. I can understand you're sneaking in the movie. I give you $50 a week allowance. And that isn't enough to go to the movie. And everybody else goes to the movie. And you don't go. So you want to go. And your only means is to sneak in. I understand that. That's not wrong. It's just wrong because the guy that owns the movie says it's wrong. I think it's wrong for a guy that owns a movie to charge you $3 admission. I think that's wrong. Let me tell you what I think is wrong. I think it's wrong if a guy like welds 45 points on a roller reel and a machine comes down and welds 45 joints in one shot. I know that the price of the car should go down every year. If it's, automobiles used to sell for $700 when I was a kid, brand new. Now with faster techniques, less current, better electric motors that are cheaper to operate. Do you know what I'm talking about? Faster paint job, automatic, goes right to the car costs less. I know that. But they say, but the guy used to make $1.50 a day. Now he makes $15 a day. That's why the car costs more. But do you know one man turns out 100 times the work of a guy 15 years ago? You don't know that. You know what I'm talking about or not? So they're lying to you. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They are full of shit. That if you charge $10 for this lamp and next year it's $12, I would say your technology stinks. If you can't turn this plastic out cheaper, better, smarter, faster, for a lower cost, you ought to go out of business. So in my book, every American business would have to have a lower price every year. And then things would never go up. People would get more abundance. I see no reason for charging more unless there's this material actually disappears. You know what I mean? If it's gone, I can see a higher price. But anyway, I'm trying to tell you specifically what's wrong. There's another thing. At Idlewild Airport, the runways are not slippery. They're pretty good. But coral wastes are slippery when wet. That's wrong. To put a sign up, slippery when wet. But there's nothing you can do about that. You can drive carefully. But when it says no jaywalking in Coral Gables, that doesn't stop you from jaywalking. How come there are no signs up in the air, 500 feet up in the air? Don't walk up in the air. Because people can't walk up in the air, so there's no sign, right? You don't understand me? Or if you had a sign in the middle of Coral Way that says no jaywalking, people jaywalk. Because if there's a sail over here, and they're not going to walk over here across the street and come back over there. But if you had a fence in the middle of the street, that wouldn't stop anything, would it, in traffic? Would it?
If you had a fence,
Yeah, right down the middle of the street, this one.
it would stop people from walking across.
That's right. And you got no signs anymore. What? You don't understand that?
But it's good that we don't have a fence, so,
It is?
yes.
What do you want?
She wants a jaywalk.
You want the jaywalk? See, the point is, I'm saying you don't need to put up any signs, just make it impossible to jaywalk.
Yeah, but that's not, no, then you'd be like in a prison, like, they say no jaywalking because they're trying to help you out. They're saying if you jaywalk, you might get hit. But if you think you're capable of walking across the street without getting hit, then you should be able to. If you get, you take your chances.
All right, that's fine. Let me ask you something.
You put up a-
Suppose it says, please do not walk on airport or runways. And I'm walking on a runway, jumping rope, and there's a big plane coming down, and the pilot tries to avoid hitting me, and he kills 130 passengers. You understand? I don't want anybody on the airport, period, that doesn't belong there. Is that all right?
Okay, now I understand.
Okay. Now, if you really want something, how come you don't have a lot of kids playing in the elevator shaft of the Empire State Building? You know, dropping steel walls down the elevator shaft. Because they haven't started doing it yet. And besides, the elevator shaft is closed. It's pretty hard to open the door and drop a steel ball in it. It's difficult to do that. So they're built in such a way as to diminish that, right? And if you don't want any hijackers, here's what you do. You have one fucking airplane a month that leaves for Cuba. Takes anybody that wants to go. And all the guys get on with their suitcases, they go to Cuba. You don't want hijacking? Free trips to Cuba. Then they get to Cuba and Castro says, what do you want? I want to stay in Cuba. What can you do? Can you operate a sawmill? No, I'm sorry, you can't stay. And they go back. But the idea is, what the hell you got all these guys stealing all these airplanes for? Besides, if they want to go to Cuba, they're not worth having around here. So you ship them out. Right? That's what I would do. Is it that bad? It costs less to ship all these people to Cuba than it costs Then all the trouble of putting these agents in the airplane, all these detectives and checking everybody, see? Okay. Now that's the way you do it. It's easy to solve problems. If you lived in my house and you hated living here, let's assume you were my daughter. First of all, I hate living with you. Here's the keys, and go live wherever you want. Because I wouldn't want anybody living here that hated my guts. That'd be terrible. They'd make me a hot cup of tea, or in my tongue. And, it'd be uncomfortable. They'd wipe their ass and put it on the wall. So why should I want anybody living there? I was saying before that if I operated a school in Hell's Kitchen, that's a poor section of town, I would have a blackboard near the shit house. You understand? And chalk. And I'd have on the wall be printed, "Fuck you, show it hard." Everything that the kids write on the wall would be printed on the wall. And there'd be erasers and chalk. Because every time I come in there, I erase that goddamn wall. You goddamn crazy kids. Give them chalk and a pencil, they're going to do it anyway. You understand that? So everybody goes around with false ideas and phony ideas. Because they get them from books, and they get them from movies, and they get all this bullshit, and they become confused. I mean sincerely confused. They're not bad people. Now the people in Washington are not a group of people that are conspirators that sit back and say, "I'm going to fool the American people." No, it isn't like that. Many, many years ago, the first group in politics said, "We're going to fool the American people." And they set it up, and the other guys are just fools. The first priest was a phony. He says, "These chumps really think I'm the magic man." And he took strange things and went like that, and they disappeared. He said, "Boy, this guy's really a magic man." And he walked around like that. He said, "I'm in touch with the one on high." And everybody followed him. All his life, they fed him and they gave him a guaranteed income. And once this guy was following the priest all the time, he says, "I believe in you." He says, "That's terrific, son." Then when this guy died, he went on telling the story about the bullshit man. You understand? I'm just telling you that all the firsts were phonies. All of them, every goddamn religion is comprised of phony men. Now, how do I know that? How do I know that's true? Because a lot of men say that's not true. Here's how I know it's true. It says Moses cast a staff before the Pharaoh, a stick, and it became a snake. And if you get books, early Indian books, there are translations in the British Museum, you go to the public library, and it tells, long before Moses did that, how they took certain types of snakes, squeezed an area behind their neck, and they become rigid like a stick. Are you familiar with that? That was, oh shit, that was done for years. What Moses did was nothing new. That's how I knew he was a fucking magician. And he threw the stick on the floor and it became a snake. And then the Pharaoh's magicians did the same thing. I don't know if you've read the Bible. They threw their own staffs and they became snakes. But they weren't really staffs. They were snakes that were hypnotized. Or a region was pressed and they became rigid. Now, when Moses put his staff into the water and it turned red, they used to do this in the early books. They had a red dye in a hollow bamboo tube. They put it in the water turned red, and oh, see? And the Egyptians, the ones that you read about in school, they had these, the Sphinx that were built like this. Some of them were built like this. They looked like a lion's body. The head was hollow. And the sun would shine on the head all day and heat up the air in there. And the high priest, this is one of the claws, would go up like that and pivot here. And inside the body of this lion, all of these priests would stand on this lever. And the legs would go up. They were 40 feet long. Like that. And the people would go, "Ah!" And then, when the sun set, the hot air, a priest would pull a lever and a little gadget in the mouth would open. It looked like a stone washer, two of them, put here. And they'd go, these people fall to the ground. Okay? Now, this is what they did in Egypt. How do you think they controlled all those damn fools? You'd have to have a policeman around every corner to control all those people. So they did a couple of tricks, and they said, if you fuck around, don't put your shoulder to the wheel, you're going to be punished by the all-seeing eye. That's how they control people, with God. Because the king never controlled, he didn't need any control. He had everything he wanted. He had a lot of gold, a lot of women. See? Remember the old kings? They farted around, screwed around, had big parties. The moral code was for the schmuckery, the little guy. That had nothing.
Is that how they got those people to build all those pyramids?
Right.
That takes a lot of time.
Well, that's how they get you to work. Because they say, you don't need it if you don't work. They say it's right to work. But everybody wants to make enough money so they won't have to work. But they never get you enough money so you don't have to work. You ever think of that? But they say if you try hard enough, you can make it. You know how many people make it? Very few. Now, the only way you get a lot of money, so you don't have to work, is to get other people to work for you. And the idea is to tell them, get out there, Carl, get going, and put your shoulder to the wheel. I believe in you. And then when you come in, you walk in and you come back, and Carl's still working there. There's a lot of promise for you in our corporation in the future. You understand what I'm talking about? Or not? No, not clear? All right, that's what I mean. Now, I'm not corrupt. I think I'm really doing Carl a favor. And Carl thinks I'm doing him a favor. That he's the average person, if he believes that. The other guy that has another factory, he says, can you get Carl to work for less? He said, no, Carl won't work for less. Let me tell you something. If Carl makes $150 a week in my factory, and I want him to work for less, I have a way of getting him to work for less. Now here's how I do it. I'm going to have him to work for $75 a week. In fact, $50 a week, without his knowing it. But if he says, Carl, will you work for $50? Carl says, no, never. Now I'm going to show you how I get him to work for $50 a week. Even Carl doesn't know about this. All right, here is the top view of Carl. This is his ears, and this is his belly, and that's his legs, and that's his shoes sticking out there. He's sitting down, looking down at Fresco's production belt here. There's all kinds of little boxes here that Carl has to select from those boxes little parts that go on a radio when he assembles it. Do you see what I mean? First I say, Carl, will you work for $50? He says, no. I says, I don't blame you. Then I bend the table like that. And Carl says, gee, that's nice. You put every box within reach of my arm. I can reach for any box. Just going to go around like this one. Instead of reaching right against him. Then he says, that's very nice, Fresco, of you. Then I put in a radio that has selected music with a beat at a given time. You know what I'm talking about? Then, in the washroom, during the 15-minute break, I talk to some psychologists, and they say, Carl doesn't get enough sunshine during the day, or during the weekends. He goes to church. I figure, if you put a sun lamp in the bathroom, take your shirt off, and the men stand in front of it and rotate, you get about an hour and a half extra work a day out of it. Did you know that? There's less absent, yeah. So Douglas actually trying to put these sun lamps in there. And everybody said, gee, how nice they put the sun lamps in there for us. Now, do you understand what I'm talking about here? A time and motion man are the men that figure out how to lay out a plan so they can get more motion out of you in less time. That's what a time and motion man is. But these men are no good. They're not good people. A good engineer will look at Carl and say, look, this guy works 8 hours a day. It's very fatiguing on the eyes to put all those parts in. Let's see if we can ease his load and speed up production by easing his load. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Not put more upon you. There was a movie that they should bring back called Modern Times. Did anybody see it? Will you raise your hand? Well, let me say, who didn't see it? Will you raise your hand? Well, let me just tell you this. The movie that was made a long time ago, they don't like to bring back. Because it really shows Charlie Chaplin on a production line tightening bolts on the car as they went home. And when he went home, he went home. You understand? All right. Now, the boss was talking to an inventor who said, I think I can get more work out of the man. Why give him an hour for lunch? The boss said, how are they going to eat? He said, I got a new invention. Watch it. So Charlie was tightening the bolts, and there was corn on the cob spinning on the machine. And he would eat it while he was tightening the bolts. You understand? And then the blotter came blowing. The idea of the movie is a boss will do whatever the hell they can do to get away with it. Children used to work in the cotton mills from sun up to sundown. I'm talking about 8 and 9-year-olds. Did you know that? When the sun came up and when it set, they were working there. There were sweatshops. And it wasn't until men became saner and machines became cheaper that they put out the children and took in more machines and adults. People protested that. But don't think you live in a good world yet. Not yet. It's still growing and it's early. The world can be a much better place. You're not supposed to hate anybody for it. They just don't know anybody yet. Any other questions about that? Now, you asked me specific questions. I'm giving you specific answers. Anything else you want to know? All right, the Airline Pilots Association said that there's not more than 4 airports in the United States that are equipped to handle emergency landings. Did you know that? If a plane lands, catches on fire, very few airports are equipped to handle that. Did you know that? No, that isn't good, is it? All right. So there's a lot of things like that. Now, don't take my word for it. Just cross Dixie Highway next time you cross, and look at those railroad tracks there. The wood's rotting away. You go look at it. Don't take my word for it. All across America, the wood is rotting away and the spikes are loose. In most of America's railroads. Did you know that? Go look at it. Now, if they had a sign in a railroad station that said, it's cheaper to travel by train than anything else, but our spikes are not that good, and the tracks are rotting away, then I would say it'd be terrific. All I have to do is tell you what the score is, but they don't. Does that make sense to you? All right. So you're going to have to do some reading on your own. You take a book list, and those books will tell you where to get this kind of information in your library. Here. Just there a minute. I'll give you a couple of those, and if you want to know where to get it, that's where you get it.
Do you think that the people grow to it's easier to die?
It's easier to die?
You know, like if you're old, it'd be harder to die if you're young and
It's harder to die when you're older. Sure. Well, that's more. You know why? Because you're losing more. Young people are pretty dumb. Like when I was young, I knew 15 things. Now I know 2,015 things. So to let go of life is much more valuable. Do you consider yourself better than you were 10 years ago? Do you consider yourself smarter than you were 10 years ago? Oh, what makes you think 10 years from now you're not going to look back and say, ooh, that jerk? You understand what I'm getting at? So the older you become, assuming you don't sit on your ass looking out the window, assuming you travel and learn things, you're going to be smarter as you get older. You're going to be faster and better, unless you're injured in some way. You know what I mean? But if you're not injured, you're going to love life more. And I can understand that, because you know more. Because the smarter you become, the more sensitive you are about more things. The younger you are, the dumber you are. You know, it was George Bernard Shaw that said, too bad that youth is wasted on the young. And he really meant that. Well, do you have any other questions about that?
I was just wondering, you know, why people I went to Miami Beach today this morning.
Why they got what?
You know, I went to Miami Beach today and everyone was really old, you know, and I was thinking, I never before.
You mean they weren't old, you mean they were moving differently. You mean they move like this? Is that what you mean by old?
Well,
What do you mean?
Just the way their mind works.
You mean their ideas were obsolete?
Well, like
They
this-
belonged in the past?
Just I was watching, there was like about 500 people waiting for a bus, and one lady put out her hand for the bus, like the bus wasn't going to stop if she didn't put out her hand.
Yeah.
It was like,
You mean she was naive?
yeah, it was like, I was wondering why people I would think through life you get better, you know what I'm saying?
That's because we don't make them better.
No,
We
that's
could
because
make
they
them
miss
better.
the bus a lot of times because it goes by you. When it
Unless
does
you
stop,
flag it down.
You got
He
to
says
flag
you gotta
and jump
flag
up
it
and
down.
down sometimes. You get to learn that after a while.
He stands in front of the bus.
That's
Okay. Any other questions?
so you do it.
Anything else? Any other comments you want to make? Shall we go for coffee? Did you see freaks?